The galaxy had a name for her that was never spoken out loud. They called her the Giant Empress, and fear followed that name like a shadow. She was taller than any known species. Her steps could shake palace floors built from star metal. Entire fleets had turned back at the sight of her banner. Worlds paid tribute not out of loyalty, but terror. No ruler in the galaxy had ever faced her and walked away unchanged. On this day, her royal court was filled with delegates from many worlds. They had been summoned, not invited. No one refused the Giant Empress. Among the delegates stood a small human group. Humans were new to the wider galaxy. They were not strong. They were not fast. They had no ancient empire or legendary weapons. Most species saw them as weak and emotional. One human stood slightly behind the others. His name did not matter. He was not a leader or a soldier. He was there as a simple observer and translator. His uniform was plain. His hands were empty. The massive doors of the throne hall opened. Silence fell like a blade. The Giant Empress entered. Her body was massive, covered in dark royal armor that looked grown, not built. Her eyes burned like distant suns. Every alien in the hall lowered their head. Some fell to their knees without being ordered. Others trembled so badly they could not stand. The human felt fear too. His heart beat fast. His breath grew heavy. He knew one wrong move could end his life in a second. The Empress walked forward, each step slow and heavy. Her presence crushed the air itself. Guards lined the walls, weapons ready. This was not a meeting. It was a reminder of power. The Empress stopped before the delegates. "Speak," she commanded, her voice deep and calm, yet filled with danger. One by one, the delegates offered praise, loyalty, and gifts. Their words were careful and empty. They spoke of her strength, her rule, her victories. None dared say more. The human watched quietly. He noticed something others did not. The Empress stood alone. Not just physically, but in a deeper way. No one looked at her face. No one met her eyes. No one spoke to her as a person. Only as a force. The human swallowed. His mind screamed at him to stay silent. But something stronger rose inside him. When the final delegate finished speaking, silence returned. The Empress's gaze moved across the hall, cold and sharp. Then the human stepped forward. Gasps filled the room. A human had not been called. Humans were not important enough to speak here. Guards raised their weapons. The human's legs shook, but he did not stop. He looked up. He met the Empress's eyes. The entire hall froze. In that moment, the human saw her clearly. Not as a monster. Not as a weapon. But as a being who carried endless weight alone. His voice was quiet, but clear. "You are beautiful." The words echoed through the hall. For a heartbeat, the galaxy stopped. Weapons powered up. Alarms screamed. Some delegates collapsed in shock. Others shouted for the human's execution. Calling the Giant Empress beautiful was not just disrespect. It was madness. The human closed his eyes. He was ready to die. But death did not come. Instead, there was silence. A heavy, impossible silence. The Empress did not strike him down. She did not shout. She did not move. Slowly, she turned fully toward him. Her massive form towered over the human. One hand could crush him. One word could erase his world. Her eyes studied him, not with anger, but confusion. No one had ever spoken to her like that. "Explain," she said. The human opened his eyes. His fear was still there, but so was his honesty. "I did not mean it as insult," he said softly. "I saw strength. And pain. And something no one else dared to see." The hall waited for the sound of destruction. Instead, the Empress took one slow step closer. Her voice lowered. "No one has ever said that to me." Something ancient shifted in the air. In that moment, unknown to all, the galaxy had already begun to change. No one in the throne hall dared to breathe. Guards stood frozen, their weapons locked on the small human, waiting for the order that would end his life. Many delegates closed their eyes. They did not want to witness what came next. The Giant Empress did not move. Her eyes remained fixed on the human. Not burning with rage. Not cold with judgment. They searched him, as if trying to understand something long forgotten. "Explain," she repeated, her voice deep but calm. The human swallowed. His heart felt like it would break from his chest. He knew every second he stood there was borrowed time. Still, he spoke. "I did not plan to speak," he said. "I did not come to challenge you. But I saw how everyone here looks away from you. They fear you so much that they forget you are more than fear." A low sound passed through the hall. Some delegates whispered in panic. This was getting worse. The Empress took another step forward. The floor trembled. "Careful, human," she said. "Words have ended civilizations." "I know," the human replied. His voice shook, but he did not stop. "But silence has ended more." That sentence struck deeper than any insult. For a long moment, the Empress stared at him. Then she raised one hand. The guards instantly lowered their weapons. Shock spread through the hall. "You will all leave," the Empress commanded, her voice sharp now. "All except the human." Panic exploded. Delegates protested. Some begged. Others accused the human of mind control, of dark tricks, of treason against the galaxy. None of it mattered. The Empress turned her gaze on them. "Leave," she repeated. No one argued again. One by one, the hall emptied. Doors sealed. Silence returned, deeper than before. Now only the Empress and the human remained. The human stood alone before her. Without witnesses. Without protection. "You are afraid," the Empress said. "Yes," the human answered honestly. "Yet you spoke." "Yes." "Why?" The human thought carefully. This was not a question to survive. It was a question to answer truthfully. "Because I believed you deserved one honest word," he said. "Not praise. Not fear. Just truth." The Empress turned away from him and walked toward the massive windows overlooking her capital world. A world that stretched endlessly, built in her image. Strong. Ordered. Cold. "For thousands of years," she said slowly, "they have called me conqueror. Destroyer. Queen of ruin." She looked down at the city. "Never beautiful." The word sounded strange when she said it, as if it did not belong to her language. "I was made to rule," she continued. "My size. My strength. My mind. Everything about me was shaped for control. Fear was efficient." The human listened. He did not interrupt. "But fear is empty," the Empress said. "It builds nothing that lasts." She turned back to him. "You saw something else," she said. "Tell me what." The human hesitated. Speaking again felt dangerous. But she had asked? "I saw someone standing alone at the top," he said. "Someone everyone obeys, but no one understands. I saw strength carrying too much weight." The Empress studied him closely. "You see weakness," she said. "No," the human replied. "I see cost." The Empress was silent for a long time. Far above the palace, unseen by the human, signals were already spreading. The Galactic Council had noticed the delay. They were afraid. Kindness was unpredictable. Fear was controllable. This meeting scared them more than war. Back in the throne hall, the Empress finally spoke again. "You have said what no one else ever dared," she said. "Now you will remain here." The human's breath caught. "As a prisoner?" he asked. "As a guest," she replied. "Until I decide which you are." Somewhere deep in the palace, ancient systems awakened. Old laws stirred. And across the galaxy, powers began to move. The forbidden words had not ended the human's life. They had started something far more dangerous. The human was given no chains, yet he was never alone. Silent guards followed him through long halls carved from black stone and glowing crystal. The air felt old, filled with power and memory. This place had seen wars begin and worlds fall. Still, the human was treated with strange care. He was given a quiet room near the inner chambers, a place no foreign being had ever stayed before. Food was brought without command. No one spoke to him unless spoken to. Fear lived in every step they took around him. He understood then. They were not guarding him from danger. They were guarding the palace from him. Across the galaxy, rumors spread fast. Some said the human had used hidden technology to control the Empress. Others claimed he was a spy sent to weaken her rule. Many demanded his execution before he caused more damage. The Galactic Council met in secret. "This is not normal," one elder said. "She should have killed him." "Fear failed," another replied. "And fear is the only thing that keeps her predictable." They all agreed on one thing. The human was a problem. Back in the palace, the Giant Empress watched the human from afar. She did not summon him again. Not yet. She needed time. Her mind returned to his words again and again. Beautiful. The word felt heavy. Dangerous. Not because it was false, but because it touched something she had buried long ago. She remembered her early years. Trained, tested, and pushed beyond limits. Praised only for strength. Loved never. Every lesson had taught her the same truth. Power earns respect. Fear earns obedience. Nothing else matters. Yet one human had shattered that belief with a single sentence. On the third cycle after the meeting, she summoned him. The human was led into a smaller chamber. No throne. No court. Just stone walls and a low ceiling built to match her size. She stood waiting, without armor. That alone shocked him. "You are calm," she said. "I am trying to be," he replied. She studied his face closely. Humans were fragile. Soft. Easy to break. Yet this one had stood where warlords had fallen silent. "I have ruled for centuries," she said. "Entire species have shaped their lives around my will. Do you understand what you risked?" "Yes," the human answered. "Everything." "Why risk it?" The human thought for a moment. "Because fear only tells one story," he said. "And it is always the same." "And what story is that?" the Empress asked. "That power is all you are," he said. "I didn't believe that." The Empress turned away. Her long shadow stretched across the chamber. "Belief is dangerous," she said. "It creates hope. Hope creates change," the human replied. She faced him again, her eyes sharp. "Change creates chaos. Only at first," he said softly. Silence returned. Then the Empress did something no one had ever seen. She sat down. Not on a throne. Not above him. But across from him. "You see me as lonely," she said. "Yes," the human replied. "That loneliness keeps the galaxy in line," she said. "Or keeps it broken," he answered. Her hands tightened. For a moment, the human thought he had gone too far. Instead, she exhaled slowly. "For the first time," she said, "I wonder who I would be without fear." At that same moment, far beyond the palace, the Galactic Council made their move. Fleets began to gather. Weapons charged in silence. They would not allow the Giant Empress to change. And they would not allow a human to teach her how. Back in the chamber, the Empress stood again. "You will remain here," she told him. "Not as a guest. Not as a prisoner." "Then what?" the human asked. "As a mirror," she said. "Until I understand what I see." Outside the palace, the galaxy prepared for war. Inside it, something far more dangerous was growing. Understanding. Trade routes went quiet. Messages from nearby systems stopped arriving. Even the constant noise of the galactic networks began to thin, like a breath slowly held. The Giant Empress noticed at once. Silence was her language. She knew when it was unnatural. From the highest tower of her palace, she looked out at the stars. They were still there, cold and distant, but something had shifted beneath them. The council is afraid, she said. The human stood beside her, smaller than a single step of her stride, yet steady. Fear makes people rush, he replied. And when fear meets power, it makes mistakes. She looked down at him. They fear me, she said. They always have. This time, the human said, they fear change. That word again. Change. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council gathered their fleets. Not openly. Not in one place. Quietly, system by system, under excuses of patrols and defense drills. They told their people this was for safety. But safety was not their goal. Control was. In the palace, the Empress summoned her inner circle. Generals, strategists, and ancient advisors filled the chamber. They bowed low, waiting for orders they had followed for centuries. The council is moving, one general reported. They believe the human has weakened you. The Empress's eyes hardened. Have I been weakened? No one answered. Speak, she commanded. One advisor stepped forward, trembling. They believe you hesitate, he said. And hesitation is dangerous. The Empress turned toward the human. Every eye followed. He is the cause, another voice said. End him, and order will return. The chamber filled with agreement. This was the path they knew. Simple. Clean. Final. The Empress raised her hand for silence. What would killing him prove? She asked. That fear still rules, the advisor answered. She nodded slowly. And what has fear built for us? Silence. The Empress dismissed them all. When the chamber emptied, she stood alone again with the human. The weight of centuries pressed down on her shoulders. They will come, she said. If not today, then soon. I know, the human replied. You may leave, she said suddenly. The human looked up, surprised. Leave? I can send you home, she said. They will not follow you there. You will live. The human thought of Earth, of quiet skies and small lives, of safety. Then he shook his head. If I leave now, he said, everything you are thinking about becomes a dream. Dreams fade. Her eyes narrowed. You would stay? Yes. Even knowing what comes? Yes. The Empress felt something tighten inside her chest. A feeling she did not have a name for. Respect. Alarms sounded through the palace. Not loud. Controlled. Urgent. A message appeared in the air between them. Fleet signatures. Hundreds. Thousands. The council had stopped hiding. They have crossed the border. An officer's voice echoed. They demand the human be surrendered. The Empress turned toward the stars again. Her old instincts rose, sharp and clear. She knew exactly how to end this. One order. One strike. Fear restored. Behind her, the human waited. She turned back to him. If I choose war, she said, billions will suffer. If you choose fear, he replied, they already are. The words hit harder than any weapon. The Empress straightened. She opened a galaxy-wide channel. Every screen, every station, every world lit up. This is the Giant Empress, she said. You fear me because I taught you to. Today that ends. Gasps spread across the stars. The human stays, she continued. Not as a weapon. Not as a weakness. But as proof that fear is not the only way. The council answered with fire. The first shots of war burned through space. The galaxy chose fear. The Empress chose something new. And humanity stood at her side as the stars began to fall. There were no loud signals. No proud speeches. Only quiet movement in the dark space between stars. Council fleets advanced in perfect lines, their ships sharp and cold, built for one purpose only: destruction. The Giant Empress stood on the command platform of her flagship. It was a massive vessel, grown from living metal, large enough to be seen from orbit. For centuries, this ship had been the symbol of fear. When it arrived, worlds surrendered. Now it waited. Enemy fleets entering range. a commander reported. The human stood nearby, surrounded by towering figures and glowing screens. He felt small, but not useless. The Empress had asked him to stay, to watch, to speak when needed. They expect you to strike first, the human said quietly. Yes, the Empress replied. They want proof that nothing has changed. She did not give the order to attack. Instead, she opened all channels again. You came here prepared for war. Her voice echoed across space. I will not give you the monster you want. The council answered with weapons fire. Energy beams tore through the darkness. Explosions lit the stars. Several of the Empress's outer ships were hit, shields flaring under the impact. Her commanders waited, tense, ready to unleash devastation. The Empress raised her hand. Hold fire, she commanded. Shock spread across her fleet. They will think this is weakness, one general warned. Let them, she said. The human watched in disbelief as ship after ship took damage without answering. Fear had always protected the Empress. Now she was choosing restraint. But the council fleets made a mistake. They advanced too far. Civilian worlds behind them, the human said suddenly. He had been studying the map. If you strike now, you can block their line without hitting those systems. The Empress turned to him. You see paths others miss. I see consequences, he replied. She gave the order. The Empress's fleet moved with perfect precision. Not a wild attack. Not a massacre. A controlled push. They disabled engines, cut supply lines, and trapped council ships between gravity wells. Still, she avoided civilian targets. Across the galaxy, people watched in confusion. The Giant Empress was fighting, but not as expected. Council commanders shouted orders in panic. She's holding back. That makes her unpredictable. This is worse than fear. Within hours, the first council fleet was forced to retreat. Not destroyed. Not humiliated. Simply stopped. The Empress ended the broadcast. On the bridge, silence returned. You could have ended them, a general said. Why didn't you? The Empress looked at the human before answering. Because ending them would prove they were right. The war did not end that day. But something shifted. In the days that followed, smaller systems began to speak out. Worlds long crushed under council rule started sending quiet messages to the Empress. They had seen her restraint. They had seen a different kind of power. The council grew desperate. They spread lies. They showed old footage of the Empress destroying worlds. They called her change an act, a trick learned from humans. Some believed them. Others remembered what they had seen. The human became a symbol without trying. Across many worlds, people repeated the same question. If the Giant Empress can change, why can't we? Back on the flagship, the Empress stood alone with the human once more. This war will not be short, she said. They will push harder. I know, he replied. Fear never lets go easily. She looked down at her massive hands. Hands that had ruled through force for centuries. They will aim for you next, she said. You are easier to break than I am. The human smiled faintly. That's why they're afraid. For the first time, the Empress smiled too. Not wide. Not proud. But real. Somewhere in the dark, new fleets were forming. Stronger. Crueler. The galaxy stood at a breaking point. And humanity, small and unarmed, stood in the center of the storm. They stopped attacking the Giant Empress directly. Instead, they targeted the smallest thing in the war. Humans. News spread across the stars of human colonies burned, stations destroyed, and supply ships vanished in deep space. The Council did not announce these strikes. They denied everything. But the message was clear. Change has a price. On the Empress's flagship, the reports arrived one by one. Each message showed loss. Each showed fear spreading among human worlds that had never known galactic war before. The human stood in silence as he watched the screens. They are using us as bait, he said. Yes, the Empress replied. Her voice was cold now, sharper than before. They believe pain will force me back into the shape they understand. Her commanders urged retaliation. Total war. Destruction without restraint. For a moment, the old path called to her. Then she remembered the human's words. Silence has ended more. She made a different choice. Redirect the fleet, she ordered. Human systems first. Shock spread through the bridge. You would abandon strategic positions? A general asked. I will not rule a galaxy where kindness dies first, the Empress said. Her fleet moved at once. When the Empress's ships arrived above the human colonies, they did not fire. They shielded. They placed their massive forms between Council weapons and fragile human stations. Across human worlds, people watched in disbelief as the feared Giant Empress became their protector. The human stood beside her, eyes filled with emotion he struggled to hide. No one has ever done this for us, he said. The Empress said nothing. Council forces attacked again. Harder this time. They struck at civilian centers, hoping to force a violent response. Instead, Empress forces evacuated civilians. Human medics treated alien wounded. Human pilots flew rescue missions for species that once feared them. The galaxy watched something impossible unfold. Humans did not fight to conquer. They fought to save. A Council cruiser was disabled near a human colony. Its crew, terrified and injured, expected execution. Instead, humans pulled them from the wreckage. Why help us? One Council officer asked. A human medic answered simply. Because we can. Those words traveled farther than any broadcast. Within the Empress's ranks, something changed too. Warriors trained for destruction learned restraint. Generals trained for fear learned patience. And the Empress herself began to see her empire through new eyes. During a quiet moment between battles, she stood with the human in a damaged observation hall. Stars drifted slowly past, distant and calm, as if unaware of the war below. I was taught that mercy is weakness, she said. And what do you think now? The human asked. I think mercy is control without fear, she replied. The Council sensed their grips slipping. Their final plan was cruel. They leaked information to the galaxy claiming humans had forced the Empress to change. That humans planned to rule through her. That this war was humanity's fault. Protests erupted on many worlds. Some turned violent. Human communities were attacked. The human heard the reports and felt the weight of guilt press down on him. Maybe they're right, he said quietly. Maybe this is because of me. The Empress turned to him, her eyes steady. No, she said. This war exists because fear refuses to let go. You only showed another path. She placed a massive hand against the glass, watching stars burn in distant battles. They will strike at my core next, she said. They want a final answer. The human met her gaze. Then give them one. The Empress straightened, ancient power moving within her. Yes, she said. It is time. Across the galaxy, fleets gathered for one last confrontation. Not for dominance, but for the future. And humanity, fragile yet unbroken, stood ready to show the stars what true strength looked like. It began with a message. The Giant Empress opened a channel that reached every world, every station, every ship still capable of listening. Her image filled the stars, vast and calm, no longer wrapped in armor. For centuries, she said, you obeyed me because you feared me. Today, you will choose something else. The Council fleet waited in full formation around her core world. Thousands of ships. Enough firepower to burn history itself. This is your last chance, a Council voice replied. Return to what you were, or be destroyed. The Empress looked at the human standing beside her. Small. Unarmed. Steady. Then she answered. I will not! The Council fired. Space erupted in light and flame. The Empress's fleet moved, not to conquer, but to shield. Massive ships absorbed the first strikes, buying time for evacuations. Human pilots guided civilian vessels through collapsing routes. Human medics worked without rest. The battle spread across space, violent and chaotic. Then the Empress did something no ruler had ever done in war. She ordered a ceasefire. Her fleet stopped firing completely. Across the galaxy, confusion exploded. The Council kept firing, desperate now, reckless. And that was when the trap closed. Without the noise of battle, their aggression became clear to everyone watching. Every strike. Every civilian target. Every lie. Worlds that had stayed silent before began to speak. They shut down Council supply lines. They refused orders. They turned their defenses inward. The Council fleet began to fracture. "You see now," the Empress said calmly, her voice carried across all channels. "Fear cannot rule what sees the truth." The Council tried one last move. They targeted the human. A precision strike locked onto the small ship carrying him. Weapons charged. Before the Empress could react, human vessels moved first. Fragile ships threw themselves into the path of destruction. Shields failed. Hulls burned. Humans protected one of their own. The galaxy watched in silence as beings with the least power showed the greatest courage. The Council's authority shattered. Their commanders surrendered one by one. Fleets powered down. The war ended not with victory cries, but with relief. When the last shot faded, the stars felt quieter. The Empress stood before the galaxy once more. "The age of fear is over," she declared. "No species will rule through terror again." She dissolved the Council. In its place, she formed a new assembly. Not of the strongest. Not of the oldest. But of those willing to listen. Humans were given no throne. They were given a voice. The human who had spoken the forbidden words returned home quietly. No titles. No statues on his world. Just the knowledge that he had changed something vast. The Empress watched his ship disappear into the stars. For the first time in her long life, she felt light. Across the galaxy, history was rewritten. Children learned stories not of monsters and conquerors, but of a moment when kindness stood unarmed before power. And power listened. The galaxy would never be the same. Not because of a war. But because one human dared to speak the truth.